Family of a kidnapped 6-year-old boy from Cape Town is relieved this afternoon after he returned home unharmed. Shawanaz Askar was reunited with relatives on Thursday night after being abducted on Wednesday morning. Police are still looking for his alleged kidnappers. Let's talk about the safety more broadly of children in South Africa with Martin Iwi, an expert on kidnappings with the Institute for Security Studies. Martin, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to Daytime Update. So when you heard this story and how it's unfolded now, what logical conclusions have you been able to draw, given the limited information that we have?
Indeed. Thank you. Good afternoon, and good afternoon to your viewers. Yes, I think this case it's a case that we need to learn a lot from it in order to be able to understand the full dynamics of kidnappings in South Africa. Because here we have a case where a child has returned safely, was unharmed, and we are not able to find the kidnappers or even to find signs of them. What this means is that the kidnappers surely know the parents. The kidnappers know the family. The kidnappers, they know the child. But the reason for the kidnapping of the child, I'm sure the family will also be able to guess, even if they don't know, because sometimes for these kind of things to happen, there must be a reason. And also, it could be that ransom was paid. We don't know. We are guessing until someone explains to us what's really happened. We cannot leave out a single scenario.
And you mentioned ransom. Times Live was reporting this morning that it had reliably learned, the publication, that a ransom demand of 800,000 rand had been made. No confirmation, as you rightfully say, at this point that ransom was actually paid. But let's speak about South Africa and ransom or kidnapping for ransom. Just how common is it?
Yes, ransom payment in terms of South African kidnappings is not it's not the most popular form of kidnapping. I think if we were to estimate using the data that the South African Police Service provides, SAPS, it forms just about 3% of all kidnappings. So you can see that it's not very, very significant, but 3% is still very serious for those that are kidnapped. Because even a single person who is kidnapped for ransom, it's a case that should concern all of us. But if you were to look at ransom payment, kidnapping for ransom in general, across Africa, you see that most kidnappings are for ransom payment, except a few cases where kidnappings were done by family members or they were done for revenge purposes. Then we don't see ransom payment, or where even negotiations took place where the kidnappers were given something in exchange, but not necessarily financial reward. Then we find that you go to Nigeria, for example, most kidnappings are for ransom because it's a business. This is a serious business. So in this case, where the kidnappers were given ransom, it's a very small percentage in South Africa.
And when it does happen, I mean, I'm thinking now of two examples that come to mind. You got Shawanaz Askar now, the 6-year-old child, but we had the brothers who were abducted in a similar fashion. Well, they were snatched from a car while on their way to school in Limpopo. Around that case as well, it was not clear whether ransom had been paid, what relation the attackers may or may not have had to the parents, if there was indeed a relationship. Kids and targeting children specifically, is that because that's the easiest way to get money out of a family?
Well, it is. Again, there are so many reasons for kidnapping. Extortion is one of it, which often ends up in ransom payment. But the cases that you refer to, especially the brothers that were kidnapped last year, that case is a very complex one because some studies actually point to drugs involvement, where the kidnapping itself was actually done for revenge or actually to extort money, which they did. So then the kidnappings that we see where ransom is often paid is kidnapping of adults, men, women. We saw a huge trend of that in the past 5 years where rich people are kidnapped and ransom is demanded. And in most cases, ransom was paid. We saw Pakistanis who were being kidnapped. We saw Indian business people being kidnapped in South Africa. And also South African rich people who were kidnapped and ransom was demanded. Then we also have kidnappings which is carried out for the purposes of terrorism, which is actually conducted for ideological purposes to fulfill terrorist ideologies, where we see the Islamic State being involved in some of the kidnappings. So these are increasing, but kidnapping for ransom, especially of children, is not a common phenomenon. What we saw, especially in the years before 2014, was a trend of kidnapping of children for trafficking, where children were kidnapped for the purpose of trafficking and for adoption. So they were being sold to adoption rings. And that was a very popular one, which actually demanded some very drastic laws from the south of South Africa, which I believe those laws play an instrumental role in reducing this form of kidnappings in the country.
Is this sort of crime that there's anything people, families, parents, even children themselves can do to protect themselves, or do you sort of wait and hope it never happens to you?
Well, children will always be children. I mean, we can talk of all sorts of precautionary measures that children can take. But of course, kidnapping is a very complex phenomenon, and kidnappers are very smart people. Before they kidnap, they come up with a plan, they drop a strategy. There are multiple people involved, and therefore it's very easy for them. So it's too much for the child for us to even expect that the child can be able to escape. But yes, there are precautionary measures that we often tell children not to talk to foreigners, not when they are in school. They should not follow foreigners or someone who they don't know, even if it is a family member. If the parent did not give them explicit instruction that this person is coming to pick you in school, or this person is coming to see you in school, or even at home, please do not talk to these people. Do not even follow them. You can't even pretend that you don't know them. But the big role is really with the parents. The parents need to really remind their children of these precautionary measures, what measures to take. And also in schools, I think schools also need to be brought on board to take the necessary measures to protect children when they are in schools, because again, the parents are not there. The children are left to themselves. So schools also need to take precautionary measures to make sure that children don't fall victims to kidnappers.
Martin Ewe, good to speak to you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.